All right, guys, welcome to the latest episode of Blood Money. Let me give you a quick little preface to this whole episode, I guess. We've done episodes prior to this about how American businesses are treated within China. There was actually a whistleblower episode we did a while back, about 4 or 5 months ago, where we learned through this whistleblower that if you're doing business with China in China, essentially, our citizens are treated very badly by the Chinese government and the Chinese court. So let's say you have a problem within China, Chinese factory rips you off and you sue them within China. They drag it out. They make it impossible for you to ever prevail in their courts. It's literally a waste of time, money. It's too political. They will simply not side with Americans. On the inverse of that, if you're doing business over here with Chinese business people, our courts, apparently, according to this expose we did, they have preference toward Chinese citizens. So you're in a situation here where, as an American citizen, you're screwed if you do business over there. You're screwed if you do business over here with the Chinese, because our courts do not provide preference for American citizens. And in fact, they side with a lot of the Chinese business people. Now, the reason why I brought this gentleman on, Mr. Dennis, is because I've actually heard about this amazing tire technology that was pioneered by a gentleman named Sammy in Las Vegas. I heard about it a few years ago. Met with him because he wanted some media work done. And he explained to me why this tire technology was so great. And he was going to make $1 gazillion. He had the patent and he was ordering tires from China. And then we don't talk for a long while. Next thing I hear, Sammy is involved in a whole bunch of issues with his tire technology being stolen. And so Dennis is here. He's one of Sammy's partners, the pioneer of this tire technology. And he's here to really explain what happened to us. So Dennis, I'm going to pass the mic to you. Tell us who you are, what you do, how you got involved in this mess, and what is going on.
All right, you want me to start from the very beginning, Vaughn, and kind of tell the whole story, like I told you the other day, and just like.
Well, yes. What I want you to give us the real quick broad strokes, cliff notes of where you are right now, and then backtrack and tell us how this all started.
Okay, where we are right now, kind of cliff notes, is the Chinese manufacturer was manufacturing our tire has stopped selling us the tire that we developed, and has joined another American. His name's Dallas Reed, in marketing the tire, and has completely cut us out, with the exception of selling us one size of tires for the Spec Corvette series, which is a spec racing series that I actually acquired the contract for, the tire being the spec tire for them. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And then, I could back up and kind of.
Okay. What I want to do is, it's crazy. That's crazy stuff that would even happen. What I'd like to do is backtrack and tell us the history of all this, because I think what's really important is a lot of people in the United States, they have great ideas, they have pioneering technologies, they then, go into it and they realize it's very hard to manufacture here, that you have to outsource. So take us to those steps of Sammy comes up with this technology, how he got there, and then what happened once he started wanting to get into manufacturing. Why did he even go to China? What was his expectations? Why did it go wrong? And also, what are they saying? What's their reason for doing this to Sammy?
Right. Well, Sammy's been around motorsports for longer than I have. I've been in at least automobile motorsports. And I've been racing in some form for 20 years, but about 10 years in cars. 10 years before that in karts. And Sammy he's just got a very entrepreneurial, innovative spirit. And he just desired at one point to develop what's called a 200 treadwear ultra high performance tire that competes with some of the biggest brands in the industry. And so he met a couple of tire manufacturer contacts at SEMA back in the mid-teens, worked with one tire manufacturer. They just sent him a bunch of junk and never worked out. And then he finally met Jeff, who was a CEO of a company called Vitor from China at SEMA. I believe it was 2016, 2017, around that time frame, and pitched his idea of developing a very competitive tire. Actually, they set out to make the best tire in the segment. So, but Jeff really didn't have any experience or knowledge on the technology of how to develop this type of tire. They were kind of made bus and truck tires. So basically what happened was Jeff started sending Sammy some samples, and the first couple runs of samples that they tried were just complete junk. Sammy almost threw in the towel and said, "This is not going to work." But Jeff kept convincing them, "No, let's keep at it until we get there." So they developed more and more kind of samples or prototypes, I guess you'd like to say, all with Sammy's input. I mean, everything that was developed from the ground up was all like Sammy, from the cord design, the way the steel belts cross, everything was coming from Sammy's expertise in tire technology. So,
and he's also a racer, right? I mean, that's the capacity where I saw him. He actually invited me to some races where, excuse me, the whole thing that I found very interesting is that he would trick out these, cheap little old Miatas.
Yeah.
And these things would be beating Lamborghinis, because one of the things I learned is that, yes, if it's a straight course, then obviously a Lamborghini is going to win. But if it's all windy and twisty, these tricked out, $20,000, $30,000 Miatas are actually beating $400,000 sports cars. So, and then
on smaller on smaller, twistier courts and autocross tracks, which are very turn intensive and not a lot of straightaways, the Miatas compete with just about anything. It's crazy how good the Miatas are. And I'm a Miata racer myself. That's actually how Sammy and I kind of got introduced to one another. So yeah, he has been racing Miatas for years. In fact, his racing background kind of ties into this story a little bit, because he had an issue with SSCA back in, I think it's 2016, 2017 timeframe, where they accused him of breaking some rules. He kind of went back and said that he hadn't broken rules. And anyways, it got really ugly and got personal. And the people at SSCA basically banned Sammy from the SSCA.
I have to ask this question because I know that this whole controversy's been used to try to make Sammy look bad, right? Which, look, even if you're a bank robber, somebody stealing your patent, there's no, just because you've done something bad in another realm doesn't mean that you could have your intellectual property stolen, right? But what I've heard is two versions of this story, which is that people are accusing Sammy of cheating, but I've also heard the version of the story where he actually wasn't cheating. He was working within the rules, but nonetheless, they were upset because he was being successful. Yeah. Tell me what your point of view is and what receipts you have on the topic.
Well, it's almost comical, because racing is known to people to skirt the gray line of the rules to try to gain any little bit of an advantage, and almost any competitive racer has done it in the past, and sometimes maybe stepped over the rule lines. It's not uncommon. If you go to the NASCAR museum in Charlotte, they literally have a whole section of where people have cheated, got caught cheating, and even to this day, even in professional motorsports, people get caught cheating here and there.
What is cheating, though? I need to understand, what do they accuse him of exactly? And tell me, in your point of view, tell me the pro-cheating argument and the anti-cheating argument. Tell me both sides.
It had to do with control arms, and they accused him basically of manufacturing control arms and that looked just like the stock arms, that allowed him to get more front camber out of the tires. And the camber is when tires are, this is a zero camber.
What's a control arm?
Well, a control arm is part of the suspension that connects the wheel to the pivot points. So the control arm has.
This is a layman's question. I'm sorry, because I don't understand any of the rules of how this stuff works. it would seem as though getting, cool kind of suspension, unless you're doing like rocket fuel or something that's not customary on cars, would be permissible, right? I mean, how much could you cheat with suspension?
Well, there's a lot of every class has a set of rules. And it's one of the things in motorsports. It's kind of crazy. The rules get so diluted over time, because what ends up happening is they find somebody that did something that's on the gray line or just a little bit over the rules, and they make a rule to prevent people from doing that. And they, I have a background with a company here in Southern California. They actually developed the racing series that I ran, and the reason they developed it was that they got kicked out of an organization called NASA for life, because they said that they were cheating, but they really were just following the rules. But they got really, really good, and they're winning a bunch of stuff and pissing people off politically. There's an old saying in racing. I believe Christian Horner from F1 is the one that may be credited with saying this, but who knows? It's probably been said for years. It's like, if you want to get really unpopular in motorsports, start winning everything. The first thing that people think of if you start winning a lot is that you must be cheating. So,
especially, I mean, just look, I don't have a lot of experience with Sammy, but I did see him race a Lamborghini and win. I'd be pretty pissed off if I spent $500,000 on a car and then got beat up by some kind of $30,000 hoopty. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but it's very hard to kind of like, when you're seeing it visually, you're like, wow, these are all tricked out cars. And then you see Sammy's Miata, it looks like, from like 1992, and he's winning. So, I mean, that's a pretty optical shocking thing.
Yeah. It's definitely, it's just a nuance of motorsports. It happens from the grassroots level all the way up to the professional level. So the fact that he got banned from SSCA, and there was so much politics surrounding that, and people at SSCA that just really kind of got a bug in their bonnet, and regarding Sammy it's kind of silly. It's really, when you look at it, silly stuff. There's plenty of people. There's a gentleman, his name's Andy Hollis. He works for Grassroots Motorsports, and he got caught cheating back in the day with SSCA, and he got banned, and then something happened where he got back into the good graces and now and unbanned. But he got caught doing stuff that was way more egregious than what Sammy caught, and he's now like the big tire tester in the industry for Grassroots Motorsports magazine. It kind of hit. The reason I mentioned his name is he actually kind of ties into this story a little bit, because Sammy knew him, sent him a set of test tires early on in 2022, 23-ish. And he did a test on him and published a bunch of things that were inconsistent with what we were experiencing from all of our customers at the time. So we were pretty much getting 100% positive feedback on the tires, on how fast they were and how long they lasted, and also on our own personal testing, how fast they were and how long they lasted. And he came out with this article in Grassroots Motorsports, which is a very respected publication in the industry, that the tires were basically, they were fast, but they wore out really fast, and they just weren't that great of a tire, basically. So that kind of hurt for a time being there. And it was one of the factors that caused, and I'll back that into the story as I go back and tell the whole story, why SSCA in 2024, or at the end of 23, beginning of 24, banned the tire for competition in SSCA. And that doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but for this type of tire in this segment, the 200 treadwear ultra high performance tires, SSCA is the biggest sanctioning body for events that use these type of tires. They're very popular in autocross and also some types of spec racing, just because in racing, one of the most expensive consumable items in racing is tires, and then brakes. Those are the two things that get consumed and have to be used quite often. And the real popular tires that are out there, that although they're fast, they don't typically last that long. So this tire was a little bit of an anomaly. It's one of the reasons I got involved with the business. Is I tested the tires early on, and they were faster than any other 200 tread bore tire that I ever tried. And then they just kept wearing and staying fast through their life cycle. And they lasted 4 or 5 times as long as any other tire that I had tried, which is, not that great for a business model. Some people theorize that tire manufacturers do that on purpose, build tires that don't, that are fast, that don't last long. So people have to buy more of them, because it is kind of just a segment of the tire, the whole tire industry as a whole. It's only people that are really interested in, high performance tires for the road, or they're competing in some events, will actually purchase this type of tire.
Amazing. I thought you were going to keep going. All right. So tell me, like this, it sounds like really groundbreaking technology that Sammy, discovered. I mean, what are, I like to kind of be totally transparent with everything on this podcast, because people are going to do their research. They're going to find out that Sammy was accused of, cheating,
Right.
Again, not that you could go murder somebody, right? Doesn't mean that somebody else could steal your technology. Right. That's like, it's 2 different categories, Right. So tell me a little bit more about, like, what is the things they're saying, the reasons why they stole this technology, what's going on right now, how's the sales, where is this right now? Because from what I hear, the tires are selling, it's just selling under somebody else's name and brand.
Well, I think what I've given kind of the Cliff Notes versions. What I need to do is kind of back up and tell the whole story. And then we'll get that, which will address the questions that you're posing here. So basically, the tire technology is, tires have been around for decades. So what the difference in how tires perform are a combination of a couple things. One is the way the steel bands that are used to make the tire, the angles that they're at, how many of them there are, where they are, the stiffness of the sidewall, how the size of the sidewall. Size of the sidewall is really not a big deal, because different size tires have different size sidewalls, so that's not a huge deal. But the stiffness of the sidewall is a big deal. And then also the compound of the tire, what rubbers are used and how they're mixed together. It's not just like they use one type of rubber. There's usually, synthetic rubbers and how those are mixed together. And that's all ties into the technology of a tire, what makes a tire good or bad, basically. And then also there's other things like the molds that are used and the tread pattern, how the tread patterns are implemented on the tire. So there's a lot of different things like that. And so go back to the kind of the original starting point of my story, when Sammy approached Jeff from Vetour and they started developing this tire. All those things, Sammy had input in the prototypes of building this tire. And, I met Sammy back in 2021-ish. And I just met him through a mutual friend from racing. And we kind of developed a friendship and camaraderie and started talking on a fairly regular basis. And he started telling me about these tires. And so I actually tested the predecessor of the current tire, which is called the P1, which was called the Enzo. And that was probably in 2022, mid 2022-ish. I was kind of helping organize the racing group that I was in, kind of the point man to the event organizers, kind of the intermediate between our racing group and the organizers. So I had a little bit of credibility. I was kind of a big fish in a small pond, if you want to say. So Sammy and I also had some input on the spec tire that would be used for our series. So I started testing the Enzo as a potential spec tire for our series. And it was a good tire, but it wasn't like a standout great tire. I had driven on other tires that had similar performance characteristics to the Enzo. So, Sammy kept working on me and saying, we're coming out with the next version here soon. I want you to test that and see how you like that. So I tested that tire at the end of 2022, and it was the most amazing 200 treadwear tire I had ever driven on. It actually outperformed 100 treadwear tires, which are kind of like a slick. They call those semi-slicks. They're DOT slicks that have just 2 grooves on them, and they're really developed for just motorsports applications. Not even though they are technically a DOT tire, nobody usually uses those for their on the street per se.
By the way, I want to throw in something about Sammy here, just to illustrate Sammy's kind of character and personality for people that don't know him. I mean, for the brief occasions where I've hung out with him, literally 100% of the time, and I'm not joking, 100% of the time, the man talks about racing. He is so in love with cars and racing. I felt like, when you're little kids and, boys discover cars and all they could talk about is cars.
He never grew out of that stage.
Never grew out of it, dude. He went for, I remember one time I went to watch the races that day when I was telling you he was racing the Lamborghinis and stuff. Right. And I was so exhausted, 6, 7 p.m. because you're breathing in these fumes the whole day. Mm-hmm. And frankly, if you're not into racing, it's a really shitty experience. I mean, I'll be straight with you because you're for anybody that's been to like a gas station or a mechanic shop and there's fumes. I mean, it's like being stuck in that times like 1,000, right? And I felt like crap because all I'm breathing in is crap the whole day. Yeah. And Sammy decided to skip dinner so he could go go-kart racing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, dude, I'm going to kill myself if I see another car, okay? Like, I'm out. I'm going back to the hotel. But that's Sammy. I got to appreciate a man with passion. And obviously he's passionate, and that's how, people that are very tunnel vision are the ones that invent those kind of cool things.
Yeah. He's very passionate about motorsports. So he got some samples of that P1, the latest generation of the tire that has become so popular at the end of 2022. I tested that tire, went faster on it, liked it better than any 200 treadwear tire I had ever driven on. And I'm like, okay, maybe there's something here. And then in all of the 2023 season, I loaned those tires out to people that were in our race series just to test them out. And every single person that tested them, like, these tires are amazing. Where could I buy them? And I had to tell them, well, they're not really available yet. This is a prototype, but they will be shortly. So my interest continued to peak, and as time went on, I actually used the tires at the end of 2023. Oh, no. Sorry. 2024, at the beginning of 2024. So I'd had to use those tires for the first time in 2022 at a track called Willow Springs, which is a very popular track here. It's actually the oldest road course in America. It's up by Lancaster in Roselawn, California. A lot of the scenes from Ford versus Ferrari were filmed at that track. So it's kind of a iconic track. So that first time I used the tires, I did a lap time in a Miata of a 132, mid 132, something like that. Faster than I had gone on any other tire ever. And so then I loaned the tires out. They had a ton of use on them for all of 23. The beginning of 2024, I took that same set of tires and went out and raced at Willow Springs on that same set of tires and set the exact same lap time that I did when they were brand new the first time I used them. So at that point, I'm like, all right, I'm in. Like, this tire is as soon as people become aware of how good this tire is, how long it lasts, and how good it stays over time, and how consistent it is, and how good the feedback is, this tire is going to become the best tire and the most popular tire in the industry. So that's when I kind of got involved financially and started, helping Sammy with some capitalization that he needed to bring the tire into the country. And so what happened at the end of 2024, and towards the end of 2024, when that tire manufacturer, I'm sorry, this is the end of 2023, not 2024, end of 2023, when that article on Grassroots Motorsports got published about the tire. There were some other things that happened online. There was a gentleman up out of Washington, and I forget his name, but he was kind of an aspiring YouTuber, and he posted this video that went kind of almost viral in the motorsports community on how Sammy was a cheater, and this was the V-Tour was a cheater tire, and it was just this really kind of casted a bad shadow over the tire. And I knew it was a bunch of BS because of my experience on the tire. So,
I got to mention this because there's a lot of historical parallels to this sort of thing. It's not like you come up with an industry, changing product, and all the people in the industry are like, hey, red carpet, drive us all out of business, right, or whatever. So, it's like, we've heard this sort of thing. We've heard how, what's his name? Bill Gates, Microsoft, the antitrust stuff. He was trying to put everybody else out of business, pretty much destroying lives to make sure that his operating system was the main one. Yeah. Netscape, attack those guys. So this is something that just happens, and tell us more. It sounds like a really cool tire. It sounds like Sammy should be a billionaire right now, but you tell me.
Well, it's not a billionaire, but he should. That's a little. It is. I think the tuner and treadwear market's probably around $100 to $150 million a year market, and the top tire in the industry, typically everybody wants it. You're looking at probably, $50, $100 million of that portion of the market.
We're talking about we're still talking about the dude potentially losing tens of millions or something, or how would you quantify what this loss is for him over the course of, let's say, 2-3 years? What has he lost?
Well, it's not just him, it's me, because because I, when I got involved in this and with Sammy, we kind of partnered up, and I, like I said, capitalized the business because when that article was published at the end of 2023, the SSCA actually took a look at the tire and said, okay, this tire it's not in the tire guide, the official tire guide. We have no guarantees of acceptable inventories that we require to make a tire legal. And because of those and the article and kind of all the other political stuff surrounding the tire, they just said, we're just going to make the tire illegal for competition for 2024. So that kind of hampered our sales of 2024. But the end of 2023, I invested a large sum of money to bring the inventory into the country that was needed to get SSCA approval. And then a couple other things happened. Sammy has a friend that has been a CEO of multiple different companies. I didn't really know him very well. His name's Robert Dupree, and he wanted to help us. He didn't ask for anything. He's a motorsports junkie too. In fact, that Lamborghini that you're referring to that you saw Sammy win a autocross on, it actually belongs to Robert Dupree. So he said, let me go online and start helping you guys with in the kind of community. And he's like, just give me a title, and I'll, it's nothing official. And we said, all right, we don't care what your title is. Say you're the CEO, whatever. We don't care. If you want to go out and help us, online. So he went online and basically declared himself as the CEO, started a personal Facebook group, and started kind of marketing that and kind of debunking some of these accusations that had come about. And he actually kind of went after Andy Hollis from Grassroots Motorsports and said his test results were a bunch of BS. And because of Andy's kind of stature in the industry, that ruffled a lot of people's feathers, and it got and then as people were coming into the Facebook group and making negative comments, he just started deleting people that were being negative, and that ruffled people's feathers, and it just got really ugly. So finally, then what happened is he actually made a contact via kind of this whole Facebook group and of these two gentlemen out of Indiana. One's called Michael Young, and he actually was the director of the SSCA time trial series in Indiana. And then someone that he knew very well, his name was Dallas Reed. He was a competitor, and he was actually an early adopter and started using the tires and was very impressed with them as well. So they came out to an event in Las Vegas, and Robert Free met with them, and everything went really well, and they loved the tires and blah, blah. And so after that, they sold us on the idea of when Yokohama, the AO52, which is also one of the top tier tires in this segment, came into the market. They were actually not, they were made illegal by SSCA too. And one of the things that they did was they did a contingency program in the Indianapolis SSCA time trial series, which a contingency program is if you place in certain levels on your class, you get either free tires or discounted tires. So he convinced us to, try that as well, and to help politically with the SSCA to get the tires legal at the end of 2024 for 2025. So we did that. We spent a lot of money doing that, and we collaborated with Dallas and Michael Young. And Michael Young, he had run this SSCA Indianapolis time trial events for quite a few years. So he had a lot of political connections within the SSCA, who was also headquartered in Indianapolis. And they basically proposed to help us politically with SSCA and the whole issue with Sammy and all that stuff. So we kind of brought them on board. There were many discussions about them kind of partnering at the business. At the time, they didn't want to put any skin in the game, though. They just wanted to have percentages of the business with basically just doing certain things. And anyways, we never came to an agreement that seemed like it was equitable. So time goes on. Jeff, the manufacturer from China, Dallas and Michael Young from the Indianapolis region, they invite Jeff to come out to one of their events that we have supplied contingent tires for. So this was in June of 2024. And I went to that event also. And we all kind of strategized on how to work politically with the SSCA to get this tire approved and to kind of put all this stuff behind us. Going back to the Robert Dupree thing, when he ruffled everybody's feathers online, we basically said, okay, Robert, you're not really an employee. And at this point, it seems like maybe you're hurting more than you're helping. So why don't you just back away and let us kind of take that over. So we did. Kind of simmered down a little bit online. More and more people were trying the tires, and we were getting more and more positive reviews. Almost every review was positive. And then, so that happened in June. We actually had an online meeting with the SSCA brass with Michael and Dallas. I was at that meeting. I kind of stayed in the background because at this time, because I helped with that organizing that racing series. I politically within that series, I kind of just wanted to stay a silent partner at the time. I just I don't really need to be the guy that everybody knows as the VTOR guy. I'll just help with this. It was a kind of a passion thing for me. I'm in commercial real estate. I don't really do anything with cars other than race them, and so I kind of wanted to stay in the background at this time. And so Michael Young and Jeff and Dallas Reed all this video conference with some of the people at SSCA, and then we met and had a dinner with, and I actually did meet another kind of somebody that was high up in the SSCA, and basically the gist we were getting from the SSCA is that they're only going to legalize the tire if Tire Rack starts carrying the tire. And the reason for that is Tire Rack is the largest distributor of distributor. Yeah, that's correct. First time distributor of tires in the country. And they are a sponsor they're the main sponsor of SSCA. So typically if SSCA was going to make a tire legal for their competition, they want Tire Rack to be carrying that tire. It's kind of like they scratch, their back and they scratch each other's backs. So that's kind of how that works politically. So we had actually
given. Man, I got to say this whole world sounds like, it sounds so political. You mentioned political like 10 times.
Crazy. I had no idea.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like, hey, I make the best tire. It almost sounds like, hey, I make the best tire. And then you got to deal with a bunch of BS until you could actually be successful with that tire.
Totally. And if SSCA, then in 200 treadwear ultra high performance tires, if the SSCA doesn't legalize your tire, you're going to sell a fraction of what you're going to sell if it's legal. It's just the way that it works. So they have some political, political sway, and almost somebody I know refers to them as the tire mafia. So I'll leave that. It's kind of funny, but not funny at the same time. So anyways, one thing leads to another. That thing happens in June. Dallas Reed becomes one of our best distributors. So we bring Dallas Reed on board. He knew full well that we had an exclusivity contract with Jeff. He actually signed an NDA with us. And he started his website called VTORP1.com, and we allowed him to do that he's a distributor. He'd be buying all of our tires from us. And so all that was going well. He was selling a lot of tires. We started selling more and more tires, but everything was going through us. And then Sammy knows a gentleman that owns Phil's Tire Service out of New Jersey. And they are probably the second biggest distributor of racing tires. They exclusively focus on just racing track day oriented tires. So we started talking with him, and he also knew that we had an exclusive with the manufacturer. And he entered a contract with us actually and agreed to purchasing a container of tires a month from us. And he ordered his first, I forget exactly when he ordered his first container. I think it was towards the end of 24-ish. Actually, maybe mid 24, he ordered a container of tires, started selling them. So, and that was a big feather in our cap of getting them SSC legal as well. But even though Tire Rack had tested the tires, we were hearing rumors that they were not happy with kind of all the political stuff that happened online with Robert Dupree and Michael Hall and Andy Hollis, and just kind of all the rigmarole that kind of boiled up online and people being mad and this and that. It was just a bunch. It was just an S show. I know this is a podcast. I could probably say shit, but it was a shit show.
It sounds like so much drama, but like
so much
drama, a lot of pageantry, but like
totally.
Legality-wise, I still don't understand why Sammy's having his technology robbed.
Yeah, so there's no really legality-wise through this development process that he went through with the tire manufacturer. They signed 3 different exclusivity agreements that stated not only it didn't just state that that's the exclusivity on the P1 tire, it stated exclusivity on all of VTOR performance tires sold in all of the Americas, not just the United States, and all of South and North America. We would be the exclusive distributor, and anybody who wanted the tire would have to go through us, and we would kind of distribute them from there and get a cut of all that. And Sammy never, because VTOR did have to invest quite a bit of money to develop this tire as well. They claim $5 million they invested. So Sammy said, okay, well, just give us the Americas. You can have the rest of the world, was kind of basically the agreement. And they did sign 3 different exclusivity contracts, which was really the linchpin of what got me involved in the business. Like if it's just a good tire and that like anybody could come along and steal it, like I wasn't interested. Right. So that's when I kind of, the money that I invested was highly tied to that agreement. So anyways, going back to kind of the story in 2023, Michael Young and Dallas Reed kind of started making some inroads at the SSCA, and Dallas approached us and Jeff and said, hey, I need a title to kind of work within the SSCA political structure to get this tire kind of pushed over the finish line for approval. So he again was one of our best distributors, knew we had an exclusivity deal. We had no reason to believe that he had any ulterior motives at the time. So we're like, give yourself whatever. We're kind of like what we did with Robert Dupree. Give yourself whatever title you want. So he's like, okay, how about marketing director? And we're like, oh, take marketing director. And he talked with Jeff, and Jeff's like, yeah, I'll give you the marketing director title. And so, but as soon as Dallas got that title, we started noticing kind of in September-ish of 2024, we started noticing Jeff acting kind of hostile towards us, and started saying things in the effect that, our team has really put a black eye on the tire in the industry. And I talked to Dallas. I'm like, Dallas, you got to thwart some of this stuff. He's like, well, I'm not going to lie to Jeff, and I'm going to tell him the truth. And I'm like, yeah, but like all this stuff is just, like you said, drama and politics. Like, and I can kind of see like Dallas starting to politically make moves with Jeff. And then what happened in October is we went to place. Jeff started putting a lot of pressure on us to order more tires. And at the time we hadn't sold out of our tires. So we had met all the demand, the current demand that we were experiencing. And, but Phil's Tire Service was starting to order containers from us, and Dallas had ordered a half a container to that point. He was going to order a full container in October. So we placed a 3-container order with Jeff in October. One was for the Spec Corvette series, the contract that I had landed to be the spec tire. That was our container. One was for Dallas, and one was for Phil, which we had a contract with and negotiated pricing. Well, then I hear Dallas was contacting Phil and because Dallas had behind our back started talking to Jeff, and Jeff shared with him our pricing. So he knew what our pricing was and what we were marketing up to his pricing. So he knew that. And now he's talking to our other distributor and he's starting to share pricing information with him. And I called him up. I'm like, dude, you can't be calling our distributors and sharing pricing information with them. That's just ridiculous. Like, we brought you on board to help with this, but at this point you're not helping, you're hurting us. And he kind of started getting belligerent, and one thing led to another. So then I believe I think Sammy was at SEMA last year, and he posted like a special discount on the tires. And Dallas went into our Facebook group. It wasn't our Facebook group. It's actually Robert Dupree's Facebook group that he was allowing us to use. And Dallas posted something or actually deleted our posting about having this discount, and started talking about minimum pricing. What do they call? I forget. I can't think of the term right now because I've got all this other stuff running through my head. But basically, manufacturers minimum pricing, MMP. So he's like, that you can't do that, and he started dictating to us what we could do with the business. Deleted one of our posts, and Robert saw that, and he's even though he's not involved with this anymore, he's still passionate about motorsports. He's passionate about helping us. He's like, he knew that he had brought Dallas into the fold with us, so he's like, BS. So he actually booted Dallas out of the group, And he knew Jeff. He knew kind of what was going on with Jeff and how Jeff was kind of starting to get hostile towards us. So he booted Jeff out of the group as well. Well, then that kind of set off just a firestorm with Jeff and China. It's like, you can kick us out of the group, and we're like, hey, we didn't kick you out of the group. Like, Robert kicked you out of the group. It's his group. It's not our group. He allows us to use it, but it's his personal group. I know anybody can start a Facebook group, right? It doesn't have to be official manufacturer. We could have opened our own Facebook group, but because Robert did and it was the biggest group on the internet for the tire, had over 2,000 members. We're just like, yeah, we could open our own group, but Robert's let us use this. But he still had ultimate control of who could be the administrators and who could delete stuff and who could, delete comments and all that stuff. He still had ultimate control of that, even though we allowed Dallas to do that as well. So that started this whole thing. And at that point, I'm just like, this is going south really quickly. Jeff started getting all irate. He's like, if you don't reinstate Dallas and me into the group, you guys you're gonna find that we're not gonna sell to you anymore. And he started giving us these ridiculous order quantities, like giving them $1 million of deposit so that we can maintain our exclusivity with him, which is ridiculous. No American company or individual is going to send $1 million to a Chinese company for future orders of something. It was just becoming increasingly obvious to me that Dallas had meddled politically with Jeff, and we should have never allowed those two to communicate with our supplier and our number one distributor. And
by the way, I got to mention something here. This Blood Money episode we did, the whistleblower expose about how it is dealing with Chinese manufacturers and all the shenanigans that they do, is almost essential viewing for this topic, because everything you're saying, we've already dealt with that. And the issue is that the U.S. government and our courts doesn't provide refuge for Americans, because they can't fight it over here. They make it really hard. Mm-hmm. They can't fight it over there. Yes, you have a better chance over here, and I think this is where this is going, that you guys need to find a great lawyer. I'm hoping this gets out to great lawyers, because this is a great case. I mean, we're talking about millions that are being left on the table, that intellectual property that's been stolen, a bunch of rumors and conjecture that have nothing to do with your ownership of the intellectual property. Yeah. So, yeah, I hope you guys find some good lawyers to take.
We're working on it. We haven't got very actually a lawsuit has been filed. No one's been served yet, but they should be served here shortly, because they're not responding. And when we filed the lawsuit against everyone that's involved that is selling the tire in the States. So Dallas Reed, Tire Rack, Phil's Tire, and those are the three main one, I believe, that the lawsuit's going after. So even Tire Rack knew that we had the exclusive distribution rights as well, because Sammy had sent them test tires, and they test them. They knew how good they were, because we had heard through the grapevine that they liked the tires, but they were just kind of waiting to see how all this political stuff kind of fleshed out before they started carrying the tire. Actually, and I have to be really careful, I think, what I say here, because it's hearsay, that we never got direct confirmation from either Tire Rack or SSCA. But what we heard was that they weren't going to, Jeff actually told us this, Dallas told us this, Michael Young told us this, that both the SSCA and Tire Rack were not going to, SSCA was not going to legalize the tire, and Tire Rack was not going to carry the tire unless America's Vitor Tire, which is Sammy and my company, didn't exist anymore. That was out of business and wasn't distributing the tire anymore. So, so what ended up happening there, we told Jeff early on, like in June, when we were talking about all this stuff, when he came out to Indiana, I'm like, look, a company like Tire Rack, they're not going to probably want to deal with a third-party distributor, because they want Like they want to think that they're getting the best pricing that's available to them. So if we end up doing a tire and securing a tire rack through these contacts that we've made and these people we put in place, Dallas and Michael, to help us in that process, if it actually comes about that SSCA legalizes the tire and Tire Rack starts carrying the tire, they're probably going to want to deal directly with you, the manufacturer. And we're going to and he's like, yeah, that's no problem. We'll do it that way. And we'll just pay you on the back end for all the tires that they order. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we got to do to get that deal. Because the fact of the matter is Tire Rack has the tire. Everybody's going to sell more tires. They're just have such a big name in the industry. They always test tires and put great tests on their website. So that was kind of an understanding that Jeff had and we had. And Jeff at the time said, you and Dallas, you and Sammy and Dallas and Michael should develop like a corporation in the United States with the four of you. And I said, yeah, that's a possibility. And we continued those talks with Dallas and Michael. But again, they didn't want to put any skin in the game for the tire to get tires here. They just wanted half of the company for potentially what they could bring to the table. And we're like, no, we've got a ton of money invested in this. And one of the biggest issues with this, with this type of business is cash flow. You've got a lot of inventory you got to carry, and the cash flow becomes an issue. So that kind of just goes by the wayside. Then all this crazy stuff starts happening with Jeff and Dallas. That 3-container order we placed in October, they basically mid-October came back and said, we're only sending you the spec Corvette tires. Well, the deposit that we had given was for the 3 containers exceeded the spec Corvette tires by $60,000 plus. So they never gave us any kind of indication of how they were going to address that deposit. And we're like, you need to send us the containers that we ordered at the price that we ordered them at. And they're like, no, we're not going to do that. And then it started getting uglier. And they're like, well, we're going to post a letter online that you guys are no longer as authorized distributors. And we're like, well, I wouldn't suggest that you do that because you've sold us a ton of tires and we have a ton of inventory. And the only reason that it's even a possibility that SSCA is going to legalize the tire is because of our efforts, what we've done, bringing Dallas on board, getting the tire in the tire guide, placing the orders of multiple containers, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of containers to get the inventory in the country to make it even possible to be SSCA legal. All those things we did, and they still threatened us with that. And then they went ahead and did it and posted online that we are no longer a authorized distributor, which really hurt our sales. Our sales were ramping up, and then that hurt us. And then Mike. So we think what happened was Dallas worked politically with Jeff, the manufacturer, and defamed us. Got him on his side thinking that he's like the savior of the tire. And he was doing a lot of marketing stuff for us on kind of our bequest and us bringing him into the fold. That's the reason we brought him in, is to do those things. And him being our distributor, we encouraged him to do those things. But then he started turning it around to Jeff that he was the reason all that stuff happening, and we're the reason that Vitor has any type of bad cloud surrounding it. And they posted this thing online, and it just got really ugly. Then Jeff didn't fulfill those 3-container orders. What he did was even though Dallas had actually given us a deposit on his container, Phil's tires, because Dallas was talking with Phil, stopped returning our calls and was dealing directly with Dallas and Jeff on the container that we were ordering for him, his next container. And it just started all going south. And Jeff's like, I'm not sending you those containers. I'm sending them directly to Dallas, and I'm sending it directly to Phil, and I'm dealing directly with them and basically cutting you guys out. That alone cost us probably over $100,000 at least. And then we also had another series, autocross series called the Racing Bird series. He's kind of a big autocross promoter in Southern California. He used to run all of his events at Auto Club Speedway. When that closed down, Sammy actually worked with him to start the series back up this year in Las Vegas. And we went to Jeff and said, hey, this is going to help us with getting the tire legalized with SSCA, because he has got a lot of contacts in the industry as well. And, what we need is like $20,000 an event for 4 or 5 events. And we need you to commit to that. And he's like, yeah, no problem. We'll do that. We'll just take it off containers that you order. So we came out of our pockets $40,000 to sponsor the first 2 events. And we're not getting, now he's not selling us the containers. We were figuring we were going to get $20,000 for each one of those 3 containers that we were ordering to get our, investment back on that. He took that, pulled the rug out from underneath us on that, and just decided not to deal with this. Now, in the meantime, they're trying to negotiate a deal with us, and is that they would give us a very small royalty per tire. And when we did the calculations based on kind of historical royalty deals, it was about half of what normal royalty people get in a royalty deal. So we're like, yeah, we're not opposed to that, but because of what happened, we're like, we need a minimum amount that you'll pay us on royalties, no matter how many tires you sell. And then we need the amount per tire that you're giving us to increase substantially to bring it more in line with, typical deals of this nature. They would never do it. They would never do it. And Sammy, looking back on it, I think was right. He's like, we're never going to see, like, we make that agreement, we're never going to see $1 of that money. And I think he's probably right on that. So we never came to an agreement with them. We actually hired legal counsel to give us some advice at that time. And he said, look, if you guys have placed an legitimate order with them, he looked at all of our 3 consecutive exclusivity contracts. He's like, and you placed an order with them, sent money over there, and they're holding your money and not fulfilling your deposits. He's like, that's pretty much a slam dunk with any court. It will be able to get an injunction against them to stop any Vitor tires from coming in the country. And we told them that, and they kind of said, well, basically said, pound sand, go ahead and try it. And so anyways, move forward.
The Blood Money episode that people should check out as a companion piece to this. So all of this makes sense because it was actually a lawyer that was explaining some of these conundrums you're talking about, and how this has gone down. Episode 217. Highly recommend that people that are watching this episode also watch episode 217, because this is something that has to be fixed. I mean, we can't do business like this. We can't do business where, you come up with an idea and they steal it from you, and they use all these like Chinese factory versus American business people kind of dichotomies to steal intellectual property. And you know what? There's a history of this happening in China, by the way. It's not like this is so unique. I remember a while back, I was working with some musicians that made this pedal, and lo and behold, this guy goes to China, finds out that the pedal that they made, the same factory selling to as like a third-party brand to another distributor, the exact same thing. And not only were they doing it, they were proud that they were doing it. They presented to the guy, and you realize, look, there's cultural differences here, because you do that in this country, you get sued because you're stealing intellectual property. Over there, it's almost like a badge of honor that, hey, I was able to kind of reverse engineer this thing, and look at, and they don't think, hey, you're being robbed of millions,
Well, what they do also, and to kind of back up on the point you just made, I was aware of that type of thing happening with Chinese businesses, and so I was skeptical of getting involved with the Chinese business, but because of the relationship, the 7-year relationship that Sammy had with Jeff developing these tires, and the consecutive exclusivity contracts that he had, I said, well, maybe this guy's different. Maybe there's something to kind of there's some meat on the bone that we have here that he's not going to pull type of crap to end up pulling. But in all fairness, if our distributor Dallas Reed hadn't done what he did with Jeff and basically politically malign us with Jeff, and make promises to Jeff on what he could do for Jeff. Jeff then saw Dallas as a way to exclude us and utilize Dallas as his new like go-to person in America. And that's exactly what happened. Dallas is now is actually an employee of Vitor Tires and a distributor of Vitor Tires. And he's working hand in hand with Jeff. He's signed a lease for a Vitor employee in Indianapolis. He has signed a lease for Vitor for a storage facility in Indianapolis. The whole time we were telling Jeff when we met with him in June of 24 that, you know, really the business model you guys need to have a warehouse here that you're inventorying tires that we can, you know, sell to all these smaller shops. And so we're not having to inventory the tires, and you guys need to kind of be the inventory. That's how all these other companies do it. And he kind of one time said he would do that, but then he came back and said he wasn't going to do that. And it is just such craziness. But now looking back on it, on hindsight, Dallas was really the fly in the ointment. And he's really politically, I believe from day one, because when we first started talking with Dallas and they wanted to become a part of the business without putting anything into the company, he revealed to us that he had tried doing this same thing with another manufacturer out of China, then it just never materialized. And he was like, I'm amazed that you guys got this done and that, you know, you got this exclusivity contract. When we showed the exclusivity, the three consecutive exclusivity contracts to the lawyer, he's like, you never see this from a Chinese company. I don't know how you got them to sign these, but, you know, like you said, they don't seem to care because they know that like recourse is very difficult against them. They'll do whatever. They'll sign whatever they want to sign or tell you whatever they think you want to hear. And then you go out and spend a bunch of money to build the product, and then they screw you.
This is why I think this is so important to talk about, is because they'll screw you over there. There is grounds here where you could win. It's just like they get treated so much better here than we would get treated over there, right? So they have refuge in that you can't ever sue China unless you want to go through a 10-year protracted, literally CCP run, marathon of a court process and spend ungodly amounts of money. Now, you could do that here because they're selling over here. You could go after their money here. Yeah. You could basically put all kinds of restraints on them. Even go into their bank accounts if it's proven that they don't own the intellectual property. So you guys got to find a great lawyer that has some balls, which, you know, as somebody that's gone through similar aspects of corruption, which was international news just 8 months ago, as it's not easy. It's not easy to find lawyers that would be like, you know what, like I'm going to put in what would be billable hours, probably, you know, $250,000 to go fight this well-funded bad guy, you know? So I hope you guys find somebody that'll fight.
We did find a lawyer that has a lot of contacts and has done a lot of work in China and Asia. And he's pretty good. In fact, in their discovery, before we filed this lawsuit, his IT expert in his office was doing research on Jeff, Vitor, Dallas Reed, you know, Phil's Tire, everybody that's a defendant in the lawsuit, just to see like what they have out there, right? So they came across this website that's called Vitor P1 dash, what is it? Vitor P1 dash DallasReedCorp.com. And when they came across it, we got an email or a text from the lawyer. And he's like, you're not going to believe what we found. And he's like, this is something that lawyers only come across maybe once in their whole career. So I'm like, what the heck is this? So he's like, we need to have a meeting tomorrow. So we had this long 2-hour meeting with him, with all the attorneys. And they shared with us what this website had said. And they didn't know who built the website, because there's whoever registered the website registered it under secrecy. Like you can't find out who actually built the website. But the IT expert that found it, they're like, this looks like Dallas built this website as kind of a way to ease his conscience and use it as almost like a journal of what he did. And I looked at it and I'm like, yeah, I have a hard time thinking like Dallas could have built this. Maybe somebody else that knew kind of this story built it and had something against Dallas and built it. I'm like, I don't know. And the attorney's like, well, we've done all our due diligence to find out if it's who owned it. And I actually called up some people like Robbie Dupree and Rob Bird of the Racing Birds company, because when this whole thing went down, we had to cancel the contract with him. And I went down a list and contacted a bunch of people and say, hey, did you guys build this website? And they're like, no, we had nothing to do with it. And the lawyer's like, well, we're going to at this point assume that Dallas built this and he didn't know that he built it. Or he didn't know it was live. I guess I'm not a huge IT guy. I guess when you're building a website, you can kind of build a lot of things and not make it live. But if you click a certain button or you don't know that button's been clicked, it's live and you don't know it's live. That was their theory. I mean, the website's crazy. People can go to it and read it. It's basically a confessional of what actually happened. So if Dallas didn't write it as a journal, it could read as a journal because just about everything in it is actually very close to what happened.
Well, okay, yeah, send that to us, and we'll include it in the descriptions below. Man, this was actually really great information. These are issues that we need to figure out in this country. And these are, the way we look at things is our issues are microcosms of the bigger issue, right? A ton of business people are getting ripped off because there's no what's called reciprocity between the United States and China, right? That has to be fixed. And I hope you guys find the right kind of representation. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that's worth mentioning before we wrap up this episode?
No, I mean, we have this lawyer that we've retained that's doing this, but we're paying him, and legal fees keep racking up. And we do have one lawyer that's talked about doing it on contingency. So I don't know if there's any lawyers that would want to take this over on contingency to kind of help us on the legal costs. But we plan on taking this.
Regardless, so like the contingency, that's why I keep mentioning the lawyers. So the contingency thing is not an issue. Like you guys are going to pursue this regardless.
Yeah, we're going to pursue it. Sammy's got his life invested in this, so he's not letting it go. I've got a lot of money invested in it, so
I mean, it sucks. I'm going through the same thing. Suing Riverside County, the sheriff's department. They got all the money in the world from the taxpayers. Like, this stuff is not easy, but you have to because otherwise it's just, the word gets sent out that, hey, it's okay to, trample all over people's rights, their money. And that's just not that's the furthest thing from America first. You know what I mean? That's like, if we're going to build this country, we can't allow people to rip off our technology and enrich themselves. So, yeah,
it's really disconcerting. What's, somewhat as disconcerting as Jeff doing this is there's American that played us to pull this off as well. Somebody that we befriended, that we brought under our umbrella, that was our best distributor, that was somebody we were treating well, and he turned on us and manipulated the situation for his own self-interest. And I think looking back on this website, and who knows who the heck built it, whether it's Dallas or somebody else that knows Dallas and knows the situation, I don't know. It's like, I think he conspired from the very beginning to do this, and he did it in a very calculated, very manipulative way. I mean, he befriended me. He let me drive his car when I went out to the Indy for that time trial event, which was kind of funny. I drove his car at the track for the first time. I'd ever driven a Corvette C8, and it was his car. And on very used set of P1s, I went out and set the track record at a track I'd never been at a car I'd never been in. And so that was kind of funny. But, we joked around about that. And I think he's gone out now and maybe set a little bit faster time that I'd put down. But, we tease each other about that. I actually invited him in October of last year. He flew out here to California and drove one of my Miatas, an endurance race out at a Chuckwalla Raceway out between Indio and Blythe off the 10 freeway. Organization called Lucky Dog Racing that hosts endurance races. He came out and drove one of my cars, and we hung out for the weekend. And it was right before all this stuff happened.
It's funny. It's like we've done a lot of politics. I mean, people that know the America Happens Network and the Blood Money podcast know that we're very, very involved in politics and political corruption. This sounds like literally identical to some of the stuff we've heard. I mean, it's like just another slice of political corruption from the sound of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, I don't know how it's all going to pan out, but, Vitor, if they don't at least, I mean, we're not being extremely greedy. We're kind of just saying, hey, retract that letter that you posted online. Continue to sell tires to us at the best price that you're selling to anybody else's tire rack or Dallas or whatever. Give us a small royalty on all tires that aren't going through us, and let's go and sell a bunch of tires. I mean, we've built now a network of followers to America's Vitor Tire, to our company. I mean, Spec Corvette buys their tires exclusively through us. We have a network of influencers that in the motorsports community that are using our tires and putting our stickers on their cars and posting about their success with the tires. I've got a friend, Jesse Uwigi. I don't know. I always mispronounce his last name. He owns a NASCAR team with who's the big Emmett Smith, the big running back out of Dallas. They own this team together, and he used to drive, but now they have drivers. I think he still drives occasionally. I've known him for years, just from the Southern California motorsports scene. Really good guy. He's a Navy guy and played football for the Navy, and it's just a really big go-getter. Has really built quite a little following for himself, and he drives also cars that on track, and he has kind of a little YouTube tape channel. So he's promoting tires for us. So we've got a good following, and we could sell a decent amount of tires. Listen, I'm not trying to retire off this. I've got plenty of assets, and I'm going to be fine. But, just the fact that I invested so much time, energy, and money into this as a passion, because I love the sport and I love the tires, and this bullshit happened. It's just like, it's very discouraging. I always like to try to see the best in people, but this kind of stuff just makes you not want to trust your next door neighbor. It's just nuts.
Yeah, I totally understand, man. Totally understand. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. We're going to have updates on this because, the law, legal stuff drags out. I know, just like I'm updating my story all the time. People need to know what's going on. This definitely affects the American people. We need to really get our law, really straightened out. So
yeah, I think to be able to straighten it out, it almost needs to be an agreement between our governments, that this kind of stuff can't happen, and that Chinese companies are held liable for doing this type of stuff. I mean, you just can't sign exclusivity agreements, having a relationship with someone over 7 years to develop something that was actually brought to you by the person that helped you develop it. And then that was actually not just helped, instrumental in developing it. And then when you see a situation that may you think suits you better, just like say, nah, you're done. It's just like, no.
Yeah, that's not the way business goes down,
Well, it's not
that's a really Chinese kind of like, and it's a cultural difference. That's the issue. It's like, how do you change the entire culture of counterfeiting stuff? This has been going on for like 30, 40 years. You know what I mean?
But
like,
I mean, there's unscrupulous people in
this right here. I got a sponsor send this to us. They're literal identical Apple EarPods that they wanted us to market. Identical.
Right.
And it's like same case and everything.
They're like $30 bucks, right? They're like $30.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And they're like, hey, look, we made it just like it, and it's it's $55 for the same headphones that Apple sells for like $199, so like 1/4 the price, but identical.
Well, unfortunately, when anytime there's money involved, people see dollar signs, they get greedy, and this type of stuff even happens with American. I mean, there's an American that's instrumental in this happening. I would even say if Dallas Reed wasn't involved in doing all this and hadn't pulled the BS that he pulled, it never would have happened. So it's illegal and it's immoral, and I don't know how people sleep at night pulling this shit off, how they justify this type of behavior. It's just so disheartening, but they do. They somehow do. I couldn't sleep myself if I did this type of thing to somebody.
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much, Dennis. I really appreciate your time, man. We look forward to updates in the future. Go out there and win this one. You know what I mean? There's going to be a lot of American businessmen that are going to thank you guys for the precedents you're going to set here.
Yeah, and if you know any other podcasters or any other influencers that may see this that want to, help get this story out, I think that's the more outlets that we have that will kind of publicize what's going on with this, may turn attitudes around and may change things. So, all righty.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. I will see you all on the next episode of Blood Money. Make sure you check out AmericaHappens.com. We just relaunched our new site, and I will see you all on the next episode. Take care.
Everything I've got, pushing for that first place.